Cool.
Yeah, so I wanted to do a few demos as well, um, for our for this show. So, um, we've been working for a very long time on like infinity algorithms in San Francisco. We've been working for a very long time making the safe exchange, and uh, we're at a point where we can kind of demonstrate what it will actually look like. So I want to just go over on the screen share. Can I do that
Man,
right now?
man, this is perfect. This enlighten us all. Enlighten us all, my friend.
Okay. So you see I have this little desktop application, right? Can you
Yep.
still see that?
Yep.
Nice. Okay, so I want to create an account, so I'll just start like this. I have a username Dolly and a password Shalla, and then I create that account. And now I have a farming dashboard, right? And on the farming dashboard, you would use this so that you can manage your when you're farming with devices, you're gonna have like maybe 2, 3, and some people might even have like 50 devices. So you're gonna want to manage them from some central location. So what I decided to make into the Safe Exchange is a farming dashboard, so you can manage and aggregate all your safe coins from all your computers. So you could add this will run a simulator for farming, and so I went over and added 5 of these machines. So simulating as if I had 5 desktop machines farming safe coins. So you see now my safe coin balance is increasing. As well, there's a live ticker for the price in US dollars for a safe coin.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the basic premise of how you're getting coins in the first place, right? And this is a little user interface that will allow you to efficiently manage your farming activities, right?
Perfect.
So then there's an interface for your inventory. So this is the safe exchange part. And then there's a marketplace. You see, so there's already planks are for sale. Oak with a price of 10 with a quantity of 1,000. So people can also make their own items. So let's say I had apples and I had 1,000 apples. They're red and fresh. So I could create that item, and it'll come up here, and it'll allow me to sell it if I wanted to for any price I want, and up to the amount that I've issued. So I can sell 500 apples to the market, and now other people will be able to query my sales and be able to buy from me this item and take ownership. So taking ownership of an item is similar to how I'm about to buy 500 planks, for example, right? Let's do 100 planks, or rather 10 planks. So there's a price and a quantity. So I can buy these planks, and now they appear in my inventory, the number of planks, right? And I
Yep.
can go ahead and sell those planks as well. So this is the demo, and I'll show one more time that we can access Dolly Shalla again, automatically repopulating with my items.
Perfect.
So that's the exchange. So people will be able to peer to peer have the ability to buy and sell using those clients. So when you run your client and create items and you put them for sale, other people can access your client and see what you have for sale and buy it from you, and send a trade request using SafeX protocol, and then do the transfer of a token style item for a safe coin and account for it. And both parties will have accountability of the fact that this thing took place personally. So yeah, this is the main thing that I'm really excited about right now. That when the networking libraries will exist, we will be able to start interacting in a commercial way if we wanted to, transferring resources and then collecting payments to account for the transfer of resources. I'm describing like real world resources, like you name it, planks of wood or apples by the bushel, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with that kind of that's a first type of version. Obviously, there's a need for some CSS experts, and I'm interested in hiring anyone who is interested in taking on the user experience, or rather the user interface design. That's something I'm looking for the person who is extraordinarily enthusiastic about MaidSafe and the Safe network, and that's about the right person who also knows CSS would be the right person to make the nice colors and invent the way in which we'll present to the people that application. But I feel it'll be very useful for people from day one on the Safe network to have this type of thing, and that's why Infinity Algorithms does what it does, is to build applications in lockstep with the MaidSafe development team, and
Yeah.
so that we'll have these utilities already from the get-go presented to the people, and they can choose to use them or not, or develop on them, or make add-ons and make suggestions, and we'll continue doing what we do, is make applications. So I also prepared another demo. So this one is extraordinarily exciting to me because we have a great video game designer full time, Ben, and I just feel that people should be able to see in this stage, because it's very nice. I just really, it really just gets me fired up to look at that application. So I just wanted to show. I know I leaked a screenshot earlier in the week, but I really wanted to get a proper video together to present, so that people can see what we're doing. So I guess I would do another screen share,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. This is.
I'll pull up that game. So so here's the entire screen. So like everyone can, any person who's watching now can see the whole screen, right, Tim?
Yeah, I can see it for you, my man.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So um, here. Okay. So we've been working on this for about a month, though 10 days, starting 10 days ago full time. And here it is. So I choose an avatar, and I chose the male character. And we have this 3D world with two portals and this guy here. And we have this little square. And remember the farming application, Tim?
Yep.
Yep. So what we did was we added this guy, our little administrator man,
Yep.
and
Remember.
we can add a farming cube just like we did, except it's visually presented so that we can interact with it and see its statistics.
Yep.
So we kind of made a 3D visual representation of the ability to track your farming for the Safe network, right?
Yep.
That's pretty clear, isn't it?
Yeah, that's perfect. I mean,
Yeah.
just bear in mind. I mean, obviously, a lot of people that be listening to this and watching this, particularly, will have talk someone through who has no idea, because obviously a lot of people will be, particularly the audience to this, will have an idea of what we're talking about. But just explain to them what the cube and the block represents to people who are unaware.
Yeah. So the Safe network rewards people for contributing their unused hard drive space in exchange for safe coins. So the cube is any computer that you're running the Safe Network client on, right? Any computer that you run the Safe Network client on, you can collect coins in what's called farming, proving resources. So if you have like maybe 10 of these computers set up collecting the safe coins, and I mean any computer, it could be, if you could get the MaidSafe client onto the Raspberry Pi, then that's what your cube is, right? That's what your farming device is. So if you had 10 Raspberry Pis, well, it's kind of cumbersome to go to each one and collect the coins. So this is an interface. This is the user interface for, in addition to the desktop application that I just showed, where you can add your safe cube. So here you could also add your safe cube, except it's a 3D digital representation. So let's say I had 10 Raspberry Pi set up. I can change these values. I can call them Raspberry Pi. And it's in my basement, and it sucks up 10 watts of juice. So this way we can add the functionality for tracking efficiency if we know the wattage, right?
Yep.
So here I'm adding several cubes, right? And so this will track the SafeCoin earnings that my machine is making. And I can just see them easily here. So it's kind of a novelty almost, and a great visual representation of your farming information.
Yeah.
Right. So this is kind of like your own world. And so what we added in was Zynga is also a game maker, for example, and they like social games. So I thought it was a very interesting conversation with Mark Pincus when considering the safe network's implications, or rather ramifications for no cost to the producer of an application on infrastructure. So the price of hosting games becomes integrated into the network's offering. So if people are willing to play this game, the network will allocate lots of resources to that game. So people will be able to get it more quickly, the files of the game more quickly. And this game here that we have is will be immediately available when the network is ticking. So people will be able to literally see each other in the game and perhaps interact, like add each other as contacts to trade with them or block them if they were like spamming. So yeah, I wanted to just run through the safe exchange that I have in mind for this. Let's run in there. So this is a 3D model of the New York Stock Exchange, except it's kind of a construction site right now. Some of these, it would look a lot different after a little more work.
Yeah.
On this, yeah, it's still looking quite nice. We can step through this world since there's no collisions on the desks, but this is basically your world. Imagine that this room will be crowded with people who are here to make transactions. So this is a 3D your world representation of your stock exchange, or your desire to trade some commodity, or shop on Amazon or something, or look for the best deal, or advertise your best offering, right?
Yep. And obviously in this exchange, again, just bear in mind that, people who've never sort of come across this before. I mean, this is actually, this is, from my understanding, this is an actual exchange, people. This is a place where, as Daniel just mentioned there, this isn't just a place where you can trade I mean, like you know, Daniel, we're trying to build N99, and that's an idea of musicians trading maybe tracks and studio time, and all sorts of ideas. But equally, in this exchange market, you're actually, which is something I love to sort of please expand upon. This is actually people can trade, which is what we've been talking about a long time for this podcast. Is that you'll be able to trade the safe coin that you earn, as Daniel just explained earlier on, by just using your computer to generate the safe coin farming network, which will be used as part of the actual network. So that you can basically, once you've got your SafeCoin account and your amount of safe coins, you can then trade that for dollars or yen or English sterling or euros. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, that's correct. If merchants decided that they wanted to make items that represent their euros or their yen, then that person can become a merchant of fiat currency if that's what they chose to do. The settlement, though, would be up to those two parties, and that's why you can communicate here. So if somebody wanted to do wire transfer and, for example, a wire transfer, then you can in private, handle that transaction and meet up in a centralized location like this one. Let's say that there's a running 24/7 direction. You connect here, and people will be here, soliciting offers or advertising their trade and waiting for willing buyers. And with reputation systems, it's possible to maintain integrity in these areas. So like consistent, real people will be here buying and selling their items. And so this becomes just a meeting ground for people to conduct commerce.
Yeah, I mean the landscape you're building up. You have to sort of sit in the top corner about the map of the actual land you built. I mean, it's just basically open. I mean, if you can imagine it as I'm trying to picture it now. I mean, you've got to see. I'm bearing in mind I'm coming from a very sort of visual point of view. If you kind of like you're seeing a landscape, which we've just crossed the sea of the world we're in. We're now in this new world, and you're starting to architecture it around. You're putting in, like you say, a safe exchange. You're putting in all different things. Is the ability for? I mean, I mentioned this from our point of view. So like we've got the concept of N99, which is to bring musicians in and creative people, and they can share their content. Now, does that mean they can start building on that territory that you've already built? So you can have the safe exchange, you can have your farming area, and over there you've got other things. Or is that the idea of what you're trying to build, that people can just come along and add to the world that you're building upon? You started.
Yes. So one thing that I intended to add, though, it's probably being right now because I can't do all of these things at once by myself.
Man.
At the moment, there's I wanted to be able to show in the future a safe university, for example.
Wow.
Where the ability to meet up and talk about research and like a developer's corner, or getting coding help for decentralizing the application with the safe network protocols. So if you have an application that has communications between people or between content and the people, it's better to use a safe network to deliver that content.
100%.
And so, and it's not that difficult to integrate safe network codes into your application. It's pretty straightforward. So the main premise is that people will become integrated with the safe network protocols at ease, rather than struggling to attain some kind of status to be able to understand how to use the safe network protocols. The point is to let people use it as if it was like WordPress. You hear of like people making websites with just a few hours of focusing. Any person can make a website. The same thing is possible for people to make a decentralized application if they already built an application.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, No, I was just saying. So, I mean, with what you just showed with both of those applications, when are you hoping to put them so that the average person? Well, hi, Rich.
Great.
I was just asking Daniel. I mean, when are you hoping to sort of like launch that so that the average person sitting in, I don't know, say the back end of England somewhere, some city in England, when are you hoping that they can sit on their mobile and actually start to connect to this? I mean, what's your sort of timescale for actual where the average person can actually use this, there and then on their mobile?
Right. So these applications, we spend our time making every single build of that game works on the mobile device. In other words.
Right.
So at the onset of this network, of the Safe network, people will be able to use these applications on their mobile devices right away. Yeah, including the game. So the game is optimized for portrait and also landscape. So if you wanted to just do the business inside of that application and access contact lists, or just use it straightforward without running around and doing the play thing, right? That's available on that application from the mobile device right away. I test it every single day on a mobile device and on multiple form factors. So it's like I imagine just like the onset of the network, and you'll be able to just interact. Like we could have this interaction in the chat, like how we organize to meet up to have this conversation between each other. We could have had that chat inside of the Safe Exchange,
Yes.
or talking next to the farming vaults, or in the Zynga world, where you see what I mean, like, or in the State University. So this is what I'm really eager about to bring to the world, and we're making it happen every single day. It's like just adding more components and functionality and just elaborating on it.
Well, I mean, obviously we kind of gone. I mean, from the beginning of this podcast, we kind of jumped in really sort of straight to the deep end. So I mean, kind of like 20 minutes in. I mean, I just want to kind of introduce to sort of like people listening, watching this. This is well, he's like he said, his avatar name is Daily Shaffer, but his name is Daniel, and he's been part of the San Francisco pod for I think about a year now.
This was like last year in about June.
Cool. So I mean, obviously, I know Rich is going to have a lot of questions to ask you, because this is something he's been looking forward to doing for a while, because he's very technology-based sort of guy. But just to before we go to ask sort of Rich his technical questions. I mean, how did you come? What's your sort of lead up to finding MaidSafe? I mean, how did you come across MaidSafe? I mean, for those people who want to have a bit of a understanding of your background, I recommend they go and listen to the Safe Crossroads podcast, because you get a very good background detail about how your story. But just quickly for people listening to this, how did you come across MaidSafe, and how did your journey to this point sort of get to where you are now?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I met Paige Peterson when I first got involved with the not involved, but just got interested in the idea of Bitcoin, and then Paige just became an employee of MaidSafe. So it was she gave me her business card, and so I researched MaidSafe because I was researching all of the crypto projects and their decentralization projects, and so MaidSafe struck me as the most sophisticated and most developed one of everything that was available out there. And so I did look thoroughly at many and just about every project that exists. And it turns out that the Safe Network is the most useful. So Bitcoin is a payment processor. So I have a background in trading, just buying and selling electronically for a very long time. So it's my expertise to deal with some kind of payment system. And here is an opportunity for my taking the abilities that I have in acquiring knowledge in coding languages and coding financial interactions. So because of experiencing them in a digital environment for like decade now, more. And so I applied that ability into decentralizing communication of financial information, actually, and anonymously, so that your privacy is preserved.
Perfect. I mean, right, without any further ado, Rich, go on, Rich, you can fire away, because I know there's plenty of you that you want to ask that. Go on, Rich.
Yeah, I sorry I missed the first part. I'm not sure what you all covered already. I know I heard you're building an app, though. Do you like to go by Dali? Because that Dali Shalla is a pretty cool name.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't mind. Like Daniel, Dali is fine. Yep.
Okay. So the app you're working on, is that the Safe Exchange, or what are you working on?
That's correct. So the application that I am making is a SafeX protocol, which is a safe exchange protocol, and an application to use the protocol in order to make financial transactions with user-defined items.
Okay, and so all of this is built right into the Safe network, and is it something like a client you could download on your phone and it would connect to the Safe network?
That's right. I could just breeze through a demo real quick.
Feel free.
Yeah, before I explain very specifically, but I think you'll see what I mean. Can you see my screen all right?
Yes.
So we used the username Dali and the password Shalla earlier, and we'll log in. So here's a user interface that I can manage my farming equipment from. Pretty intuitive, right? Pretty obvious. It's utility, right?
Right.
So then I have a market where I can buy and sell items, and we sold some apples and planks.
You sure did.
System D.
And we have an inventory.
System D stands for System Dali.
Yeah. What is it?
Oh, I said everybody's going to think System D stands for System Dali.
Oh, I see. Wow. Well, I look forward to bringing this to live action so that we would actually be able to communicate using this type of dashboard. And obviously, I'm adding features on a constant basis, though the architecture is in a definitive state. So it's just a matter of getting features that people are really interested in seeing in a platform like this. And because Infinity Algorithms just only develops applications, that's what we're interested in doing, is just making the best possible application for each person to use on the Safe network.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is so you basically are working with a beta, the Safe network beta release, or MaidSafe beta,
right?
And you're able to interact with this.
So this application is just serializing the data in the same. With the MaidSafe network, we'll use the network file system API. So because being so close with the team, it's easy for me to see in real time the developments that are happening. And so I can make fine-tuning adjustments to the application I'm building so that when the network is completed and the developer packages are there, for me it's a simple just replace with the finalized version of the get, put, and update, and delete, and the authentication, things like this. And they're already very close like authentication is a completed component, for example. Encryption is a completed component. So actually, not on this machine. I forgot to prepare it. I'm sorry about that, but I will make a short video soon. But I managed to get a Rust user interface that encrypts, that takes the self-encryption example, and you can give a user interface a file name, and it runs the self-encryption method on it. So it's possible to self-encrypt files from a user interface, and that's something that's pretty exciting, I think. So what I'm saying is I don't have a beta to run of the safe network, but I see the components and I make applications taking into full consideration the design of the components. And that means that my applications today, and it's just a matter of a lot of focus, just to pay attention to what's happening, and being immersed in the safe network codes and the safe network space, and just developing the applications to be parallel with the safe network features.
So how did them switching from C++ to Rust affect anything you do, or did it?
Yes, indeed it did. However, I was studying what's called I learned to use in the fall, and then now have a tremendous proficiency in using Qt Creator, which is a IDE for making quick user interfaces with a good backend with a whole library for designing applications. So I'm very proficient in that, and it has a QML. So there's Qt, C++, and then there's QML, and that uses JavaScript. So for all the technical people, they will enjoy this. QML uses JavaScript type. It's the JavaScript style for making user interfaces. Mm-hmm. And someone built a library that connects Rust to QML. So that's how I was able to take the self-encryption example and build a quick user interface, because I was studying how to use Qt Creator, and Qt Creator does QML, and therefore when the switch to Rust happened, while I'm still getting up to par on the coding with Rust, though I can do several things at ease, the self-encryption library, I was able to just take the components of the self-encryptor, and with a little bit of help, I can put it into QML and use the QML, which gives me the little windows like we saw in the demo that I made, and you can click on it and do things without using command line.
I mean, just for the. I mean, I was going to ask you on the subject of like C++ and Rust and stuff. I mean, I remember when I first sort of like went down to True, and I had a chat with Nick and David about that. And I was so enthusiastic about what I wanted to do with N99. I actually said to David, I said, well, I'll go and learn C++. And you can imagine he just looked at me and said, no, you're just wasting your time. It's the amount of knowledge you'd have to learn. So my question to you is that, is like, how many people in the coding community can actually use Rust? I mean, is it that new a language that there's not many coders who understand it? And how's that?
Yeah, there's a very big community around Rust, and the reason being is that it's not so clunky like C++. By the time I was able to write some kind of decent application and understanding how to use C++ in a way where my application is like, if I define the type for an item and then I use it as a component in the application, it's like, by the time I understood how that worked, it was just many months. In comparison, Rust, in just a month, you can learn the same way you would learn Python.
Okay.
Python is a quick way to write some kind of application, because it shows you basic principles of writing software, and it just spits out. Like, it's easy to create a program that just spits out a value in Python with just a few lines of code. You don't need to understand how this file structures work to make an application that's very powerful. So in Rust, you can define a struct or an enum right inside of application. So what that lets you do is make like key values easily, and they're ready to go right from the get-go. Like, from the top of the file, you can define what you want to do, and then just start doing it. And so, whereas in C++, you have to have header files and the implementation for that header file, and then you need to include it into the actual application. And this is like, let's say, 60% increase in overhead of coding.
Right.
So with Rust, it's more straightforward, and but systems programming is something like to create a system for people to use, where there's a process that is repeatable, and people will be able to use it without it breaking every time. So that's another level of understanding to grasp. And so, yeah.
How easy is it to take old software, legacy software, and put it into MaidSafe? Does there have to be a lot of are there compatibility issues from the network that we know today to the MaidSafe network that it has to be rewritten at its core level, or is there an API that will somehow allow it to interface more somewhat easily?
Well, you know, right off the bat, I can tell you, I took Fix Protocol, which is a legacy software, and the way it's functioning, I literally just rewrote it. And so, I mean, I just wrote it my way, let's say, but it's like a replica, except with functionality that we will need for the safe network and for doing user-defined items. So I took what already is an industry standard, added some special, not so special, I just added more functionality, and the protocol that's legacy is already designed to accommodate for expansions. So I simply added expansions. And so using legacy software and then adding expansions, and then instead of sending it over, let's say, to someone's server, I just store these files in the safe network and give people a direction for my messaging, and I give people a direction for where my order book is located. You see, so the order book stores the list of things I want to sell, and so I don't need a server, I use the safe network. And people only in my contact list should be able to read my order book.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I mean,
so what I'm saying in one sentence is that legacy software is easily adaptable to the safe network architecture.
I mean, on the sort of like continuing on what you were just saying then. I mean, obviously again, I mean, I've got a kind of proficient understanding of the world you're in. I mean, do you know what I mean? I kind of learned back when I was a teenager. I learned basic language, computer language, back in the day when they were trying to encourage everybody what. So I've got an understanding of what you're doing. One of the things that I wanted to sort of touch upon you was because, like you just touched upon then, there was a huge jump when you went from C++ to Rust. It was a huge, great big, almost a big step forward. And what I'm trying to say is from your understanding as someone who, is obviously very deep into the world of, systems and coding and stuff like that, is the MaidSafe going to be the network and the safe network when it goes up? Is it going to be able to, maybe future-proof? Will it be able? Because obviously new languages and new computer coding is going to come along. Will the network itself be able to handle the new, coding and language? Or do you understand what I'm trying to say? Is the ability of the network, is it quite flexible that if, say, in 2 years' time there's a whole new language, it just blows Rust out the water? Will everything be able to adapt, or will the MaidSafe network just be stuck in an old language and then there's a new one?
Well, so similar to like the Fix protocol, for example, it works because it's a definition.
Right.
So whether you take the architecture of the safe network and do it in Python, or you do it in Rust, or you do it in C++, the actual activities are the same. However, the language is different, and that's about it. And so if people decided to switch to a new, more advanced language, although I feel Rust is something that's here to stay for a little while, but let's say in the next decade something new comes around, the ability to do it in a different language is it's apparent there.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I mean, one of the questions that I've been asked to sort of like ask, particularly someone from your, who's in, working for the Safe Pod and anyone,
Yeah.
I'm asked this a lot by people is, try to explain to the, like again, to the average person out there. I try to, but again, I'm just a very kind of just a monkey, prodding in the dark. I don't, you know what I mean? But try to explain to people out there the concept behind that. The whole concept that the more people that use the safe network, the quicker it becomes, to the point where the internet, like as we know it right now, the more people that use it, it slows it down. Just explain that and try to open that one up, because it's a very mind-blowing concept of what the safe network's going to be about. That the more people make it quicker. So it's just explain that one in kind of layman terms.
So let's take, for example, you have a picture of a cat, and it's the only picture that's put on the safe network. If every person on the safe network was to access the cat picture, because it's the only picture, the only file, and everyone is accessing it, the network will understand that it should not be taking a slow time, and that this file is important. Therefore, let's make many copies and make this thing readily available to the people. And so that works on a proportion to the number of files, the number of requests for that file, and the number of resources on the network. So the more accessed file will be more accessible. And so it starts out at X number of files existing, X number of copies existing out on the network. So if you're the only person who accesses that file, well, obviously you won't have many interruptions going there, because you're the only person asking for it. So the issue gets in. It's like when you go to the post office. If everyone's in line and there's only one person at the booth, then you gotta wait in line. So that's the problem. So if we had 4 copies and 4 people are waiting in line, we are okay. But if 8 people are waiting in line, we have only 4 copies. Now we have a little delay. So in these types of cases, the network will allocate not 4 copies, but increase that number of copies to accommodate for the bigger queue for that file. And that way, the network will dynamically allocate resources to files that have lots of people asking for them. So it becomes a very efficient distribution method.
Yeah, perfect. I mean,
I have a question about that. From what I understand, once a file is duplicated, it stays there. There's no mechanism to remove it. Is that right?
Well, when a file goes into RAM, so when you're accessing the cache, and it goes into RAM, when that file is no longer popular and it's no longer in the usable in the RAM, let's say that memory space is overwritten, then it becomes dropped, essentially.
So when it's duplicated,
only
then
disk
it goes to other computers or the farmer's RAM, and so it doesn't automatically make a duplicate to the hard drive of their device. It sends it out to take up more space on RAM rather than more hard drive space.
Yes, from my understanding is that there will be copies put into the RAM of computers on the network. As far as making more copies to the disk, I'm not sure exactly, so I can't say.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering, I know that from what I understand, the redundancy is something like a file is duplicated to 4 different computers, each chunk.
Right. That's correct.
And then, and if that computer is pinged and it's not accessible, then it takes it from another computer and duplicates it to another, right? And then, so that's definitely 4. And then the one that was pinged and didn't have it drops it down in its rating as being a reliable computer and earns less safe coin because of it.
Yep.
Okay. But ultimately, if that person turns on their computer again, now there's 5 computers that have the data.
That would be correct.
Okay.
Yes, though I'm not exactly sure how it'll look in a live setting, though, and I'm sure we will find out very soon. However, with regard to how the network adds resources, so RAM is a component, and I understand and know that RAM will be used for making files readily available to the people of the network.
And so not only, and that's another thing that would make it much faster as well, right? So,
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, because reading from the RAM is far more accessible than reading from the disk. That's correct. Yeah, and
so as
so.
a farmer, I'm sorry. As a farmer, it would seem to me that to optimize your amount of earning SaveCoin, it would be to maximize the RAM on your computer. Then.
I think that the balance is essential between you need RAM. You can't just ignore it. Is what I'm trying to say. And the optimal farming equipment will take into account its bandwidth, maximum bandwidth that the device can accept or handle, and then the maximum number of requests per day or per month or per 256 gigabytes. For example, like how many requests does that device get or can handle? How many in a second can the processor handle? And so, do we need more disk space? Because you might wind up overspending in some areas where you could get more machines. And so the point is to bring people the most accurate information on farming so that no person is wasting their resources buying something that is not efficient. So the idea is better to, if a Raspberry Pi for 35 bucks is better off than, completely better off for 35 bucks just buying Raspberry Pi 2 and then running it on there is better off than running it on some big computer that costs $1,000, right? So if you're going to dedicate a machine, you should dedicate an efficient machine, not some kind of expensive, overbearing device that will do less work than a small machine. So that's for dedicated farming. And I mean, obviously, you want to run any machine you have available in its idle time, if you feel like. But I'm saying for dedicated machines, you want the most efficient price point, and then most efficient ratio for how many safe coins it can, how many safe requests it can facilitate more so that the safe coin returns are well balanced for the price of the device, but also so the network has more resources per dollar per person trying to invest into farming equipment.
That's awesome.
So I mean,
one more question, and I actually have to head out. Is there a way or a place where people can go to see what is being developed, precisely what is being developed at this point, so that there isn't a redundancy of efforts and one, say there's 20 people working on a video service, and when they're, is there a place to go to where it's all laid out?
Well, I happen to be usually buying devices regularly. Whenever I see something interesting, I make a purchase so that when the network is live, I can run those things and get the metrics so that later I can publish them to the people.
Right. Maybe I didn't phrase that quite right. I meant as far as like people like yourself who are coders. Is there a place that the coders can go to say, okay, I see there's a team working on this, there's a team working on that, and then that way they can, rather than try to do it themselves from scratch, they can collaborate. Is there a website or a forum that has all of the projects that are going on in MaidSafe listed?
I assume the best place for that would be the Safe Network forum, right?
Right.
Yeah. So what I'm really intrigued about is using an application on the Safe Network that will allow us to manage the community, let's say. Not manage, but to to put in to organize in any way that the people feel like organizing their how they express what they're up to if they want, right? So
Right.
the idea is like a bulletin board in the Safe network where people can post their project, like what steps they're going through, kind of. So likewise, I'm gonna want to post a bulletin board there about farming. You know, like all my results from all these farming devices. I'm just gonna put them up there and then just say, hey, if you got that thing, this is kind of how it worked out for me. And if you got this device, this is how it worked out for me, and you would just make the adjustments for yourself. And so I think some kind of bulletin board, like if someone's doing a project, just post it up on the Safe Network bulletin board. Like that seems like a really effective way to post things. I think like an app on the Safe Network will just feel more productive, let's say, because we're putting up relevant data and there's relevant materials. Like not everybody has 24 hours a day to read Safe Network all day like I do. So most people have jobs and they do other things in their time. To add Safe Network to their application is not, you know, lifetime task. So when everything is finished and defined and the network is live, to convey this information will be less convoluted, less complex. It'll be straightforward. It'll be like, you know, several hours to integrate the Safe Network to someone's application. So the way we're trying to organize ourselves, we kind of are not in the plane to do that at the moment. It's just like, I remember in October when we went on the Slack chat room and we kind of organized those few things, it was like, I just want to be on the Safe Network already, so I don't need to use this application called Slack. You know? So
Yeah, man.
yeah, this is the point that like when we're on the network and you know I'm building these applications every day and my team here is expanding to build applications every day. The point is we'll build every application anyone desires for them.
Perfect.
You see what I mean? So
Yeah.
then we can just make bulletin board and vote on the bulletin board, kind of like Reddit, except let's populate it with all the relevant information for you know getting on with the Safe Network and making that work and getting websites over there. So there's going to be a lot of activity that people can do to kind of shift the cogs that are in the old internet with DNS and shift them to Safe Network with this giant server. I mean, Safe Network becomes the sum of all servers, the sum of all computers. And
Hey,
so, yeah.
I gotta head out, but Dahlia, it was really nice meeting you, and I hope we can chat again sometime soon.
Likewise, Rich.
Oh, we're switching off.
Hey, yeah, I gotta head out. Hey, it's good to see you, Ryan.
Yeah, guys seeing you, Rich, on the way out.
Hey.
Cool, Rich. I'll see you around, man. So, I mean, one of the things, obviously, that you know, I kind of wanted to, before Rich was just mentioning that to you, we kind of take it a step back.
Yeah.
One of the things you mentioned about how people utilising, like you said, trying to balance the pay point of what you're going to pay for the machine compared to what you're going to get out of farming. Isn't that surely, as I understand, and I kind of thought this when I first heard about this, wouldn't it just be almost a good idea now to be going around and buying really cheap, old school, like the old, like maybe a computer from 10 years ago, because they'd be quite cheap, and you could obviously just sit there and farm away on an old machine. Is that?
That's something to consider. Actually, in fact, I didn't consider that, but right off the bat, I would say that, let's say it's $10 for that old computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that the cost of electricity in the long run, because that computer uses like 300 watts, I'm sure. If you get like the towers from 10 years ago, they use 300 watts. So the Raspberry Pi, like that big, they use like they use 10 watts, something like this. So the amount you would spend in electricity running that $10 computer just wouldn't be up to par with what's available today. So I would put that machine on the lower end of the resources, I mean efficiency level. However, that's not to say, like, if you have a old laptop, that uses not as much electricity. And they sell laptops from not 10 years ago, but let's say, like, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and you can get them for like $120 refurbished. And so then that becomes an interesting value proposition for farming. I'll be right back. I need to get my laptop charger.
No, that's...
Yeah.
How you doing, Ryan? Before we go any further, man, belated happy birthday.
Hey, thank you. Another year, another great day. I'm sorry, I'm bad at faking enthusiasm.
You got to that point again. Meh.
Meh.
So just while we wait for Dave to come back, man. I mean, maybe excited about the Thumbelista project. I mean, I've been bombarded by kind of people comments and stuff on some of the images we've dropped. So I'm looking forward to that. It kind of ties quite well with what we're talking about tonight with Dali, really, because we kind of have our views of the future. So that's why I'm going to kind of try to grid him as much as possible to find out, all the questions that we have a nightmare about or fear, to see that, how someone from that world feels about it.
Well, you know me and my ideas of the future is cold, and that is sort of an all-encompassing term and statement. So I mean, even as far as video games go, and the Oculus Rift and things like that, it's and then the whole singularity. Once there's singularity, the half step behind that is somebody wanting to be in the singularity for video games, and just being in tune with it and having it surround all your senses and actually encode itself into your DNA just so you can understand it better. And I'm sure, if people will do it for business, people will do it for fun. They can make fun out of anything and business out of anything, and usually they seem to do it very well, except they make a ton of money doing it. So I can't imagine how much a thumbnobulist would actually cost if it were real.
I'm just getting back. What were we talking about?
We were talking about the singularity. So I don't know how you feel about that being from the computer industry. Someone does system work. That's an interesting point. How do you feel about the Ray Kurzweil, the whole 2049 singularity thought process? What's your thoughts on
exciting. Because one of my biggest aspirations is to build a spaceship, and there's a few fundamental a non-rocket spaceship. I mean a real UFO.
Okay.
And so there's a professor who designed airfoils when he was 15, right? So he in the 1930s and 40s he was designing the 3D model for a airplane foil, right? An airfoil, so that it would fly efficiently. And he designed the biggest airplane that ever flew, and that flies today. So he wrote something that is the blueprints, if you will, the preliminary blueprints to a flying saucer, and he illustrated the necessary components with full mathematical theory and proof of the problems to solve. Because he spent most of his time theorizing and writing the actual knowledge versus just talking about it. He's a mathematician by trade. That's what he does. He creates and invents the ideas for making things that fly. So when I learned about these things, and when I met the guy Alexander Belankin, the professor, it was very fascinating to learn that it's not the speed that will kill you, it's the acceleration. And so you can essentially, if you wanted to, fly at the speed of light, in theory, by that kind of suggestion.
So on that very subject, because I've always sort of kind of tried to object that that very thought process you just say. I mean, I kind of get to, isn't there a logical point where technology will develop to to the, on its continuation of its Moore's path of knowledge and how it progresses, would there be a point where would it be necessary for humans in physical form to actually leave the planet? Wouldn't it just be done through electrical form or neural?
That's a tremendous point, Tim. Simply because it's a tremendous coincidence. I'm sure it isn't. That Alexander Blanken authored a very elaborate paper called The Electronic Civilization, where people will be able to download their everything about themselves and be able to beam themselves to different planets and to basically proliferate the entire universe, at the speed of light, or if we can accelerate the speed of light, that would be very fun to, where you can be at the Earth and learn about the universe and be in the universe from an Oculus headset. I mean, literally. I mean, actually be there and experience and feel everything like you were there. So, yeah, you're right in that regard. I'm also interested in the actual flight as well. I think it would be very fascinating to fly over to Andromeda and cruise by the galaxy there, in fact, and come back to be able to talk about it.
Well, you just said the most key word there, my man. Coming back. You don't want to be the first. You don't want to be the first, or maybe the first generation of test pilots. Maybe when it's got a few return journeys, then I'll maybe jump on board.
Well, robots are fascinating objects that will go into hell and back for you.
Okay.
Well, on an opposite note, if in sort of a sci-fi weird sort of juxtaposition question, I guess, do you, if when we think of aliens, we think of UFOs and some sort of extraterrestrial sentient being visiting us, we usually think of a higher form of intelligence. So if we are getting to this point where we have scientists and mathematicians that can sort of see these actually be able to foresee in the future the capability to download yourself and shoot yourself off into another galaxy, do you think an intelligent species out in space has ever done that and sent somebody to Earth?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I considered this before, that it's possible, and you can't outrule this possibility. That, in fact, that before us in this conversation, someone built the flying saucer or has beamed themselves out into the universe and then beamed themselves back, and they are here today and they have advanced knowledge that they simply choose not to share.
Yeah, I can quite go with that. I mean, one of the things I wanted to sort of ask someone like you, particularly like I said, I was listening to the podcast, which again I don't want to retrace old sort of things that people can find in this, that other podcast I was telling you, the Say Crossroads one. But one of the things that I've always been fascinated with asking someone like you is, what does someone like you do when they're not doing coding? I mean, we talk from. I'm an artist. We talk to Ryan over there is a filmmaker, musician, and what does someone like you do when they switch off? I mean, what do you do? What's your other side? What's your yin to your yang?
Yeah, I enjoy I enjoy the beach. I enjoy when fruit falls from the tree and at my feet. I enjoy seeing fish caught from the ocean, like that big. I enjoy playing tennis as often as I can. I draw pictures. I write poems. I sing songs in the sunset. And many things like this.
You do realise that in the future generations, that's going to be your word for word, what you just quoted there, Daniel, is going to be exactly the very definition of the new Renaissance man. That's exactly the definition of it. What you just said, Daniel. I sit in the sun and like that. You summed it up perfectly. That's exactly it. That was the enlightenment moment. That was the Zen moment of the podcast.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one of the things that, again, I mean, we kind of touched upon it, but kind of maybe give us a bit of a background, and definitely tell us what the your project Infinity Algorithms is, because I mean, how did you come across that? What is it? Just give us a bit of a background on all of that, because that's a very fascinating thing. It's like a rabbit hole. I've just jumped down, and I'm fascinated by it. So yeah, please expand.
So when I was a kid, I always fantasized of running a company, having direction and pursuing that direction. And so I went through some pretty major business interactions. I've seen very amazing and monolithic corporate structures, from the inside, from the perspective of the person who formulated them and created that universe around their idea. So when I came across something like Safe Network, let me step back one more time. Infinity Algorithms, after going through several interactions and instances of very substantial businesses, I wanted to make my own. And seeing and knowing how people do this, I applied the same methodologies, I feel. And I was going to create a hedge fund, or rather I was lobbying for a hedge fund to acquire $250 million and allocate it towards a project that would be sustainable and useful to the planet. And so when I find something like Safe Network, it's like this is the type of project that I would want to allocate all of my energy and that drive that I had and fascination as a kid, and then knowing how huge businesses exist and how they run, the ability to take those skills and that perspective and that ability to perceive how it's done and then build it around this environment and be able to allocate those capital that I can, attract and allocate it towards advancement of the people using Safe Network technology.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's how Infinity Algorithms started out as, the pursuit of $250 million to advance society and culture. And so finding Safe Network, it just expanded. It was just me with my laptop and a trading program that I wrote that just works. And so that's a vehicle to earn lots of capital. So in reality, I would never need 250 million. I can earn 250 million using technology that I've developed. And so that was my initial pursuit. And in this case, I'm not going to be using a robot that I used in the past to trade equities and things like this. I will use this knowledge that I know to create a company that creates algorithms that advance humans and society. So that would be algorithms for optimization to build spaceships, for optimization to grow crops at actual farming,
Mm-hmm.
and actual safe coin farming, for example. These are parallel things that can be explored and investigated using autonomous algorithms. So the type of aptitude that I developed writing code for statistical modeling in the hedge fund space, I applied to what the humans need in optimization in terms of weather pattern analysis, to develop ways to optimize farming in agriculture, to develop farming in computer resource allocation, and to develop the use cases around those types of projects. That's the intentions of Infinity Algorithms. And so, so far so good. We have a growing team that's almost nine people today, 6 of which are application developers, and I'm proud to say that 2 from the community. So it's really neat to be able to be in a position to allocate not just computer resources, but even financial resources to build out those applications as a company, and the company is capable of sustaining continuous development because it has the infrastructure of a corporation. It has the ability to be autonomous. Corporations are here so that if I'm no longer involved, they continue working on their rules that were predefined. I mean, speaking of, automatic systems, the corporation system is automatic. It's just not coded into software. You see?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's how we're just rolling, and we're just doing what we feel good about.
So like I was just saying a minute ago. I mean, I often say this on this podcast. We really are living in the greatest days, and we really are like living in a new renaissance. And it's the same as, imagine if you've gone back to the Renaissance 500 years ago. People would have been living in it and not realizing it. And I love what you're saying, because one of the things I love about the whole of this general decentralization of the world we're seeing at the moment is we're getting people to connect. And as it was in the Renaissance back in the day, it's not just the world would be a better place when people like myself and you, and artists and coders and mathematicians and scientists, because as we know, to create a great plan in this world, we need many different viewpoints on things, and not just. I mean, one of the things I think, one of the weaknesses right now, I don't know how much it is in the coding world, but I know I understand this is particularly in the scientific world, is that everybody's so focused on their one little project that nobody's actually talking to anybody else. And that's one of the things I personally thought was an epoch moment about the whole safe network, because the ability to talk and exchange without having to think, oh, I can't do this because I'm under certain regulations, my company rules, or X, Y, a certain amount of, there's always regulations. If you take that away and we get this kind of thing going, where we get, like I say, the future, someone like you, a coder that meets with some guy in the middle of, I don't know, Ghana, and he comes up and says, oh, I've got the cure for cancer. This is what I love about the whole of what we're building. And I think it is. I don't know how you feel that from your angle, because I'm just, like I say, I'm seeing it from more the artist. That's what I'm saying. That's when we fly the flag. I see it from creative.
If we were to take an observation of a business perspective of what you just described, a hedge fund model is to just take in capital and do something, and don't lose the capital. This is rule number one. So, in the case of a person who has the cure for cancer, well, the whole society of people would definitely agree that the cure for cancer is something we need to have on ice, ready to go at any time. So such a hedge fund would take their capital and be on the listen for the cure for cancer for eternity. And when that cure for cancer comes around, they will evaluate how much a contribution ought to be to keep the cure for cancer on ice. So it's always best in hedge fund space to reach a equilibrium where the price approaches like near zero. So the point is like in insurance, right? People don't get into a car accident every day, but sometimes people do, right? You're not paying $100,000 a year for your car insurance. You're paying like $500 a year for your car insurance, for example, right? So that way, if in the event you get into a car accident, like you kind of take care of everybody, but you don't have to pay the full charge, and no one pays the full charge. But because everybody is like pulling in, gets into an accident, then that's how it works. So insurance companies are kind of like the aggregators, but let's just say hedge funds, for example, would take certain amount of capital, listen for the cure for cancer. Then when the cure for cancer comes around, then they would bring it to the market. And if models where the cure for cancer is released into like a bulletin board, and it's an obvious thing for everyone, so the person who developed that cure ought to be, given like a lifetime, how to say, like accommodation on this earth for helping all the people. And so, and if they were interested, if their lifetime assurance is like being the prince of Saudi Arabia or something, right? Then that should be allowed. Let's put it this way, right? Like if that's what they deem the lives of ensuring the lives of 8 billion people, that no one will ever have cancer, right? then that person ought to be in a very comfortable place. However they decide is comfortable, because I'm as comfortable in my apartment as I am on the beach, as I am in a grand house. So it's like I don't think people all the time care about the same things in all situations. You see what I mean? So I think that people should be able to, be able to change their hat whenever they feel like, and to experience the whole range of life. So coming back to the point of the cure for cancer, a business would have to be on the listen to evaluate that cure for cancer, and then bring it to all the people. And that takes time, and that takes resources to do that. And so using something like Safe Network and the bulletin boards, having something like SafeMed, for example, where doctors can decide to collaborate and evaluate what people are doing, where on a global, unalterable location, where communication is not censored at all. And so that's where you will find these cures. And so I hope people with capital and with time ought to spectate and find and evaluate those types of solutions to problems that we have on the Earth, like the free energy discussions. There's always this obscurity and fog around the inventors of zero-cost energy. And why is that? It's just maybe the communication channels don't exist for accommodating such people and their presentation to the Earth. So that's my take on it. I think those existing corporations, because you can't kill them, and you shouldn't kill them because they have capital that, if only they saw a different way, would just see that they can modify their activities, because corporations are not, they're not in stone. There's people can vote and they can change the way things work, of course. And so if people only saw a different model and how more effective it is and how it could maintain positive profits for those corporations, let's say, and in the process, the point is profits exist because of expanding into new places. It's not like you invent the cookie and then sell the same cookie for 100 years. It's you invented one kind of cookie and then you released it to the world, and you got reimbursed for releasing that cookie that everybody liked. So now it's time to build onto the next cookie and distribute to all the local bakeries to distribute the cookie that people want. And if that means giving the recipe to all the people, you should give some kind of, like the music royalty. Like, for every cookie you sell, give me like 1/10 of a penny for life, you see? While that company now pursues a new flavor of cookies. And that's the idea that I feel is what Infinity Algorithms is doing. Is like, so right now we've got a farming dashboard, and we have the game for farming. But inside that game, that town that we saw will expand and grow and elaborate based on what people desire. And the same with every application we build. And so it's more like, are people interested in that? We want to pursue that. And obviously people are interested in the things we're talking about right now, advancing the people of this planet. And I wanted to add that such a person with an enormous amount of knowledge from the universe, if they beamed back, they'd also know how to stay alive for 2,000 years.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So just saying that if such a person does exist, they are definitely channeling this knowledge into the Earth. And if only we would listen, or be not distracted so much so as to check it out what other kinds of knowledge is available to us, then we might be able to hear that person who has been living on this planet for the last 2,000 years. And things that fascinate me is like one story I wanted to share that fascinates me. On that note of a person living 1,000 years, the story of Jesus, right? So he was killed. By the story it goes, he was killed. And then he came back and said hello to his friends, right? And so, and the friends didn't recognize him, right? And he said he just walked away and departed. And those friends said, hey, that was Jesus, that guy we just killed 3 days ago. So, in other words, Jesus is immortal and a man alive on the planet by definition of the story, right? So, therefore, if you were to consider it like recorded history or something, so there's a man who understands how to be stabbed to death and love to death, and then come back 3 days later and walk around and talk about it with other people. So it's like what we think we know might not always be the case, and there could be a man who's alive for 2,000 years, and let's just agree that it's possible.
I can go with that one, my friend. I can go with that one. I think on a very sort of the point we are right now with what we're understanding in our knowledge of humanity, as we know, I mean, the human body actually, it's only a philosophical question. Is it ever supposed to die? And this is one of the questions that I kind of like to raise a lot. I mean, we spend a lot of time on this podcast raising these kind of questions, and yeah. I thought for many years now that the biggest question that faces humanity right now isn't war, isn't all those things. They are important. I'm not trying to put them on the sideline, but I think one of the biggest issues we've got to face as a human species is, like I said before, this technology is going to carry on its path of advancement, and we've got to work out if that does enable just half of what we project, all the things you're saying, maybe we can live for maybe 500 years and stuff. Then you've got to ask the questions: what are we going to do for 500 years? I mean, if
write poems, make music, eat the mangoes that fall from the trees. That's what this earth was built for. I mean, if we don't hoard things and eat more and store more than we can handle, we're just fine. I assure you. If you're there's a lot of land on this earth. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of beautiful land on this earth that you don't need to build a city everywhere you go. You don't need to build business everywhere you go. I mean, there's you can find plenty of enjoyment just relaxing and enjoying abundance without needing to scrounge for capital. Let's put it this way: there is abundance that just food grows on trees. Seriously. And like beautiful scenery is just as good as the high definition television. So all I'm saying is that again, like how we perceive things is if you step back, it's kind of like you see that there's more out there than less, and there's plenty for every person, and that I'm sure of.
Yeah, I think we would tend to. I would tend to definitely agree with you. I mean, one of the things that as you mentioned earlier on, and it's something that Ryan particularly has a particular viewpoint on, which I'm sure he'll expand on. But it's just distractions. Do you think we've got a lot of people around us who are very distracted, and they love, we're having this conversation right now. There's millions of people sat in their homes watching X Factor, or and it's those people you think, well, that's what I'm trying to say. That's a big question for humanity, because they got to wean themselves off these distractions and understand almost the comprehension of what it is, how fortunate we are to be alive in these meat machines, experiencing this time in this place we are right now. Go on, Ryan.
Well, what's funny is, I guess to expand on that idea is, I mean, pretty much everything that these mainstream sort of current events that really get everybody talking about, just kind of sort of things that don't relate to them in any way, and they get all up in arms about it. And then there are people who see that it's a distraction, but when they talk about it, they don't talk about the vagueness of distractions. They'll point out the same event, and then they'll post about it like 4 or 5 times. And they're saying like, this is just a distraction. Why are we taking away time from this? But at the same time, they're playing into that game of the distraction, because you're not looking at the root of it. You're looking at the bad fruit that blooms from the tree, and you're saying, this is just bad fruit. Why does it keep doing that? You're just sitting there staring at the tree, just waiting for the next bad fruit to pop up, when you should actually just pull the fucking root. But
that's brilliant insights, and that's correct. And I think the best analogy, or the best way to that I can express, that idea in a different area, is that in medicine, for the last 800 years is modern medicine. And all we do is address symptoms with modern medicine. And then there's something like Chinese traditional medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, right? That addresses only roots. So if you have some kind of ailment, you know, a runny nose, even something that simple, that's because somewhere else you have an organ, you know, incompatibility, like something is not pulsing the right way. So if you fix the organ, and maybe it's like stress, or maybe you know, the fog is actually affecting your feet because you don't cover them, you know, while you recover. So you might be getting a chronic illness because you don't have the environment to recover from that illness, because the affected place is due to the environment. And if only you strengthened your affected place, and then you could handle the environment. And if you only address the runny nose and not where the runny nose came from, you'll never solve that. You'll die with the runny nose. It's that simple. And you're right. Like, you know, we're dealing with symptoms and not problems as a society for the last 800 years, instead of paying attention to, like, you know, addressing the root causes. Absolutely. And I think one additional, like, amazing thing that just came to my mind is that, well, we all have a cybersecurity issue. And with Safe Network, we can alleviate that issue. Like, we will actually be feeling secure using our digital devices, knowing that, you know, it's great to have CIA and NSA and all the agencies of the planet watching this alongside while others watch while we talk about this, right? Or rather, they have the ability to access this. That's great. But what I'm saying is that when we want to have a private conversation, it shouldn't have prying eyes, because those are our thoughts. Those are our ideas. And when someone else is reading them, they're really interfering, in fact. Because, I mean, if they were not intended to receive that message, they ought not to interfere with the energy of that message. So I can only imagine how many inspiring moments people have had that didn't happen because energetically they're being spied on.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, it's one of those things that you mentioned there, Daniel. I think it's one of the things that we discussed on this podcast, and it's come up a few times. Is this whole idea, and I personally think, I'm interested to see what your thoughts on this would be. That we've almost got a world now of people that we've been conditioned into not even understanding what privacy means. I mean, man, you know, kids. I mean, I'm a bit older, so I can kind of, you know, remember what it was like. But you know, everything is given away, and what is interesting to me is that we're losing that sense of privacy, and like everybody's giving everything away. You can go on Twitter tonight, you go on Facebook, you go on whatever, and you'll find people will be telling you their lunch, what they had for, you know, how many times they went for a run, how, you know, how far they travelled and stuff. So like I say, I mean, this is one of the things that I think will obviously it's going to come out and be discussed in the wider world in the next sort of, you know, a few months when we launch a Safe Network, is almost trying to get people heads around about what privacy is. The ability, like you said, that we can have a private conversation. Right. You know what I mean? It's almost kind of lost, and what we're flying the flag for is kind of saying, look, you can have a bit of privacy, which is, I don't know how you feel about that, but I just think it's almost a human condition, part of what we are, that's being lost. And it's been lost because we've been told not to be private. I mean, I don't know how it is in San Francisco, but over here we've got CCTV cameras everywhere. I mean, I don't know what it's like in your part of the world.
People are all about Facebook. I think that's a good summary. But Facebook is, you know, add everybody and everybody can see you. And so, like, I prefer, like, I use these, I started using these social media, you know, services to get in touch with people with a like interest, with a similar interest. So when I get, when someone adds me who I've never met before, I'm reluctant. I usually send a message in advance and introduce myself maybe, or, you know, say hello first before admitting that this person, I know them, you know? So I feel like people ought to get back into that and to make more powerful connections. between each other, rather than these loose, loose and, let's say, frivolous contacts, right? And that way people would feel more like I'm taking it for myself, because I don't know what people think or what they feel ever. But I do know that I feel I feel better that I'm making a contact with people who I want to be in contact with. Like, for example, Tim, you and we got in touch on the Safe Network forum. So obviously I put myself there because I want to always, I'm always open to communicating to any person about Safe Network. And, and that's right, that's why I'm there. But when you go on Facebook and you want to share, a photo with just your relative, you almost don't have that option, because you have the whole universe. So if you put your album, you gotta, how do you do that where you don't have this soliciting algorithm, is what I'm trying to say. That this Google advertising soliciting algorithm, it's not, just doesn't feel good, just plain and simple. And so getting privacy back is more making connections, more real connections with the people that we actually are connected with. And it doesn't mean that getting rid of those finding people algorithms is a bad thing. Like, maybe, like in the case of Safe Network, I put myself there because it's the use case to discuss Safe Network and to work on the project of Safe, right? So if we made applications and everybody is interested in running metrics, we would be able to make a very quick way to retrieve that data. We can make a global repository of data, human, running, and every information on running. And people who want to divulge with a meta tag running, with Nike shoes, and the evaluation of how far I ran and how much pressure on the shoes did I have. And so they wore out in 1,000 miles, and then the Reeboks wore out in 1,200 miles. So these types of data are information. Are interesting, versus like gathering metrics on where I clicked on the screen to, buy a product. I see the product and I want it, and I made that decision on my own, based on my own evaluations, based on empirical data. Then it's more meaningful than being sold and told. And so seeing the metrics, people can now be more creative and use those metrics and design things and create products, and that the people actually will get a huge value. You know how they say in America they build things one-time use, like like brake pads last for 10,000 miles, not 100,000. Right? So it's like, why is that? Well, maybe just some of those corporations don't know how to make 100,000 miles. So it's like, maybe if only they knew, the products would be perfect and flawless. And like, in Germany, they produce very tremendous products that last, decades, because they're made of the best practices in steel manufacture, and their solid designs that when the cogs spin, they don't grind each other, and they don't break. So that's why it lasts for 50 years. So then when you have inferior mixtures, for making that metal, and the cogs the teeth are misaligned by 0.5 millimeter, and that causes them to grind by the 3rd year. That's a design flaw, and the flaw of the manufacturing plants, and that's the flaw of management, not maintaining that the best practices are put forward by the factory. And so if only they knew readily how to do it efficiently for low cost and to deliver the best product to the people, so that people don't die when they try to hit the brakes. That's the point. It's like, how do we get those metrics? And on Safe Network, we can create we can encapsulate the variables we want from people, create an application or a specification and say, listen, we want to get your jogging information so that we know how to make the most ergonomical sneaker so that you can run and enjoy nature, and we can deliver you that product that is perfect for your body, and it will be at the lowest manufacturing rate because we can gather information on the person's feet, and we can gather information on activities and how, if I run and hit a rock, how it'll scrape the shoe, and will the shoe break. We can gather metrics on that. We can gather metrics on if manufacturers are willing to give up information about the manufacturing process and educate people on doing that, and someone can put all the pieces together and design a shoe that everybody would benefit from. Maybe it keeps your spine straight and makes you have that confidence that when you're running into the nature that it's not going to be destroyed when you come out. Things like this. And it doesn't cost $180, it costs $45 because the manufacturing process is at the most efficient level. You see what I mean? Like, if we make it explicit what we're asking for, it is useful. But when we're deciding, when an advertisement company is pressuring the service provider to collect XYZ data, so that they can better sell their crappy products, well, that's not good for people. It just doesn't help. That's the point. And it can't go on. I mean, we're a society and we decide what we do, right? So if we decide that we don't want the people who are making applications to collect random data about our spending patterns, and people decide that they're more interested in having good products and advancing their environment than themselves, then they're going to choose to give the data where people are suggesting that it will be a return of value directly to that person, rather than letting the Facebook or the Google determine what's useful information, and then getting all the capital and then allocating their capital to what they think is more important. So this way, imagine you had Google's $50 billion a year, right? And it went to the decentralized inventors marketplace, where people put up a method, collect information, optimize against that information, and release a product. Those products would be based on the state-of-the-art information that the people empirically delivered. And if only we just have validity on that data, meaning people don't alter that data so that it's not skewed to mess with and interfere with models, we win. And there are ways to do that, guys. So it's like,
no,
this has been a very inspirational conversation, Tim, and I'm very excited.
No, I mean,
Ryan, it's been a tremendous upheaval of inspiration to have this dialogue between us. Wow.
No, I think
definitely.
I think one of the things that we share a lot in common, even though we've never met and we're just meeting for the first time here, is that we've both been kind of in our own separate worlds, putting our heads down and just ploughing away, doing what we're doing. You've done that, and we're both kind of collaborating in that sense, because I need people like you who are doing the code, because like I said to you earlier on in the podcast, I could learn, but I haven't got the skills. But equally, people, that's what we've been doing. We've been putting our heads down and ploughing and just telling the bands and the creative people out there it's coming, and because once that audience comes, and now for the first time in a year, and I was saying this to Ryan the other day, first time in a year, I'm like, from seeing just concepts and maybe how you kind of, you saw the future, things are starting to build. That's why I wanted to speak to you immediately, because I'm seeing like, wow, that's an app I can actually see on my phone, and like I say, so once I see that, I think, wow, okay, then soon we'll be able to get N99 because we can get this going, and then once I do that, this is what I'm saying. This is a really exciting moment, I think. This is an epoch moment in history. I really do think that. I think we're at, I don't know, you'll know more than me how close they are to launch. I don't know, but we're, by the end of this year, we're going to be living in a different world. I really think that, and that's why I'm kind of really excited, as I said before, that when I saw your app on YouTube, I was like, wow, because I've had this concept of N99, and we sat on this podcast and we ploughed away. We've got all the musicians and the artists and everybody else interested in, and now it's going to actually have to become reality. And I don't think maybe people like yourself understand how much of a game shift that's going to be for all us creative people. I mean, when I started this podcast a year ago, I said no more starving artists, and the solution's coming. And then that's such a big thing, and that's such a, maybe people in your world. I remember I was speaking to David Owen. People maybe they don't you in your world you don't realise that what kind of you're unshackling us for the first time in human history, and this is what I love about the times we're living, because and like I said. It's almost equating to the times when we had the printing press, and this is the new version, and it's interesting. That's what I was saying. It's gone.
No, I was just saying I agree with you. Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's what I'm saying. I mean, that's why I can say we're very similar, because you've been down there and you're stuck in San Francisco and you've been ploughing away, and I know the kind of world you lived in. I went to the Troon building. It was an unreal experience. These people with like 2 screens in front of them, just sitting there in a world of code. I'm like, wow. Yeah. But like you say, I mean, for all the effort that we've been putting in, and I think this is what I'm saying. I can't help but be excited, because I think, wow, this is very, very close to launch, and and that's what I'm saying. It's going to be great. And for people, again, the beginning, we're explaining at the beginning of the podcast. So this looked brilliant. I was like, oh, great. That's not just some. I think that's one of the fears that people, when they come to me and they say to me, oh yeah, but is it going to be very kind of looking like, maybe like what Windows 2 or Windows 3 look like, very kind of, you're not user friendly, but you produce something that's completely user friendly. So, all power to you, my friend.
Yes. I almost want to get the phone so I can show you the game working on the phone.
Oh, okay, cool.
I don't know if we have a Ben too. He builds our games. I don't know if he's listening, but he has my phone at the desk.
But yeah, one of the things I've said to Tim, and I don't know if I've said it live on the podcast, was how I was very into the idea of the Safe Network and Safe Cafe and MaidSafe and SafeCoin, but I couldn't. It was hard for me to sort of visualize it. For some reason, it was just one of those things that I couldn't see it, and I was like, just like Tim said about being user friendly, I was like, I didn't know if it was something I was going to be able to understand, if other people were going to understand, or if it was just like the really smart people that were getting it. And then, he sent me that clip of you on the phone and going through it, and I was like, oh, like. There it is. Like it was definitely what we like to call in here. It was a wake up
video. Yeah.
It was a wake up moment where it was like, oh, now I can actually see it. I know what's going on. I can in my head I can think of all the possibilities that can come from that, and how you could just like, it would just sort of be like this interactive, literally just an interactive Earth with people's avatars just sort of walking around on it, but you can actually do things with that. You could run a search, you could so somebody could be theoretically on the halfway across the Earth from you, but you don't have to do anything except like click a button, and the next thing you're standing next to them, your avatar's next to theirs.
That's correct. And you can talk using the MaidSafe messaging protocol.
Yeah. Very cool, extremely cool to see after, this, all that me and Tim have talked about it and been involved in it. Trying to help in any way we can.
I want to admit the reason for, why did we do the game? It's because with a game you have an aerial view. You could see from a third person, so it gives you perception advantage, and it's nice to see. To have people to be able to interact with their lives in that way, and to see the use case. Ben just brought me my phone, so I'll be able to show the game on the phone. Just saying. Which one is it? This one?
I imagine that's an older version.
Oh, but just to show that it's on the phone.
Oh, okay.
That would be fine. Cool. You want to say hello?
Yeah, this
Hi,
this
folks.
This is Ben.
Hi,
who,
Ben.
who makes our games
Nice to meet you all.
all day long.
You're the one we have to thank. Then we were just saying, we were just talking about how it's so user friendly. It's brilliant. I mean, we're in absolute awe of what you're doing. So, big thanks from here in Scotland from me, my friend.
You're welcome, Scotland.
Yeah,
I will close the door then. If we're gonna...
yeah, absolutely. Tim, I will need to kind of wrap up. Let this be one of the last things that we do today, and
Yeah, that's cool, man.
it'd be really cool to speak with you on a regular basis. In fact,
Definitely.
Just it's just a lot of fun to share these things, and yeah. So is it viewable? Can you see my camera?
Yep.
You can see it. It's big
Yep.
for everyone. So you see that's on the phone. So I went ahead and selected the male character, and it's the same kind of features, except this is a older build, but just showing you that the game is working inside of the inside of the mobile device, and how simple it is. Even though we've done many modifications and improved and enhanced the quality of the interaction, though you can still participate and make, even just in our earlier versions, it's really evolved, but this just elegantly works in the mobile device. And this is a Samsung Galaxy S4, so it's like it'll work on a Samsung Galaxy S6, and I mean S5, and it'll work on even the S3. By the way, these are mini, so it'll work on any of these devices, as well as Mac OS X, Linux, and Windows, and in the web browser,
So
and on a Sony PlayStation, and on an Xbox, and so it's like wherever you want to play the game, it'll work just fine.
So where can people go out to sort of like, find out where it is or down? I mean, what to the general person out there, including me, what would you recommend? Where's your next step? Where do I go? What do I type into Google or whatever? Where can we find you and get more information to get involved?
Well, we would still want to wait up for the networking component. I mean, we have the website infinityalgorithms.com, though we focus more on making these things happen at the moment than how it looks on our website. So the website will give mostly links to the Safe Network forum and just briefly job descriptions. I ought to enhance them, since in fact we are constantly evaluating for personnel to people who are just enthusiastic about decentralization, bringing privacy applications to people. And it's not like a cybersecurity position. It's more like it's like just making something really fun and useful that people will actually want to use. So it's like we're welcoming designers for games, graphics designers, like I said, CSS applications. If someone wanted to read our website, that would be something fascinating to have someone to hire for that. I mean, truly, we're really excited for people to focus on the Safe Network.
Yeah.
And if people are so skilled and so motivated, they should be an app developer too. And we want to provide like the best environment for that person to thrive with their drive. So their skill set can advance the human race.
Yeah. Well, like I said before.
But just look out. Yeah. Sorry. Just look out for the links in the future. I thought to make something that you could download today, but probably within. I would just say that in 3 weeks' time, this game will just be very immersive. I'm sure it'll work on Oculus because I just set one up yesterday. Yep. And we're looking forward to the consumer version of Oculus. So it's like it has all the optimizations. Again, like we're speaking of optimization, like the most ergonomical way to interact with the life things that you want to do. Yeah. By the way, with regard to like progress, I accidentally leaked a photo from Paige from iOptio's GitHub. I just saw it coming in on the Jira, but I should have thought more like people would need an explanation when they see that picture. But it'll be up on the forum for probably a few more hours, if not, and admin deleted it. But just rest assured that there is a intuitive roadmap for developers and people that both can understand, and developers are people, and so believe it or not.
Well, like I said, man. I mean, I've got to thank you because you give me 2 hours of your life, and I know the world you live in. That's almost 2 hours of precious time.
I enjoyed every second of this.
No, like I said. I mean, I'm really looking forward to building together because I think it's the old thing about it's a meeting of like minds, and I'm so thrilled to meet someone like you who can actually do it. Like I said, because I was getting to the point maybe February, December time, thinking I'm going to have to learn Rust now. I mean, it's bad enough I've got to get my head around C++ to write this application, but now I've got people who are far more knowledgeable, and so it's been great. So, like I say, to both yourself, Daniel, and to Ben, I know you only joined at the end, but it's been absolutely great. And we'll definitely get you on nearer launch of the Safe Network, and when that goes live, because
that's going to be a very exciting time. And I hope to see, the whole team of Troon, if they felt like to, come online and give their take and perspective as well. This just been a tremendous ride so far. Let's say a tremendous development. Personally, I learned so much since last year, that I never expected, honestly, and I owe it all to Safe Network, every single thing. And it's been a tremendous moment to have this conversation with you.
Well, definitely, like I say, when it gets to being near close to launch, we definitely have to have a big, we'll get you back on, and we're because even tonight, I mean, I've had 2 hours of your life, and there's so many questions I could ask you. So we haven't even touched upon how the child genius who was writing programs at 8 years old. We haven't even touched on that one.
Well, I hope that I can just optimize well enough, that it has an impact, and
Oh no! Like I said earlier on, Daniel, and I think it's important that people like yourselves and Ben, you can hear this as well. Like I said, for people like us, who are the artists, you are the ones that are coming along and cutting the chains of our shackles and are going to set us free, and it means so much. That's why there's a massive army stood behind us on this Life is People. There's musicians, because they're all waiting, and they've just been waiting for someone like you to come along. So I know you don't hear it a lot because you're stuck in a little room and you kind of I think it's important that people like you hear this, because you're stuck away doing all this without anyone, maybe times the recognition you deserve, and from someone who's an artist, and I know Ryan's a filmmaker, and I can speak for all the people we talk to on this podcast. Thank you very much. That's really all I can, to really say. Thank you, because it's,
glad to build this footage with you guys. Yeah.
No, it's perfect. Like I say, we're definitely being contacted, and I will definitely be contacting you, because I've got the whole of N99 to talk to you about, and you can be the voice to build it for me. So we'll definitely be talking about that. But like I say, but from me in Scotland, and Ryan in Ohio, and Ben and Daniel in San Francisco, this has been an absolutely enlightening edition of Life is People. And with that, I'll say, Life is People, people.
Yeah.